on that. And we're here, we just want to share with you our short interview that we did with the director of Iron Sky, about Iron Sky, and about what we have to look forward to.
Where are we from? Siegfried. The Earth. And when did we leave? Brunhilde.
1945.
Wonderful. And where did we go?
The dark side of the moon.
Brilliant.
Dann beginnen wir mit dem Meteor-Blitzkrieg und fegen alle diese Untermenschen von der Erdkarte.
We come in peace!
Ladies and gentlemen, sometime last year we brought to your attention an exciting new project called Iron Sky. Well, today we're delighted to be talking with the director of Iron Sky, Mr. Timo Vuorensola. Mr. Vuorensola, welcome and thank you for taking time to talk with us on the Sci-Fi Diner podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for being on board.
Well, I heard about this last year and I thought it was a very interesting concept. But before we talk about Iron Sky, please tell us about yourself and your work as a filmmaker.
Yeah, I'm a filmmaker. I'm living in Helsinki, Finland, and I've done one feature film before Iron Sky. It was called Star Wreck, which was basically a Star Trek / Babylon 5 parody, which was released on the internet in 2005. And after that, I started working on Iron Sky, which is basically a science fiction comedy about Nazis from the moon. And we just finished shooting, and now we're going into editing and the post-production phase.
Very cool. Now, I'm doing a little research on Iron Sky, and I found out you had a part in Star Wreck. For the benefit of our listeners, can you tell us a little bit more about Star Wreck and what your role was in it?
Yeah, Star Wreck. I directed Star Wreck, and I also played a little side character in there. Star Wreck was basically sort of a zero-budget geek made in mom's basement kind of production, which we did for 7 years. And it was the basic idea was that we wanted to get Star Trek and Babylon 5 fighting each other and building a story around that. And we did it with zero budget, but we did it for quite a long time. And eventually, when we released on the internet, happened to be the first ever released feature film on the internet, so it became largely popular all over the world and received millions and millions of downloads. So it's also, at the same time, the most viewed Finnish film ever in the world, which is kind of funny.
Especially for one that's done in your mom's basement, so to say, right?
Yeah.
The fact that you do a parody on Babylon 5 and Star Trek, you only do a parody on something if you really appreciate the genre to begin with. Would you say that's the case, that you really do like Babylon 5 and Star Trek?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I started directing Star Trek, and I had not seen even one episode of Star Trek fully by that time. But right now, I'm after Star Trek. I mean, years after Star Trek, I started to really look into Star Trek also, and we're going with my girlfriend through all the Star Trek episodes in 1 year. We're right at this very moment watching Voyager season 7. So I do appreciate the franchise. I do like Babylon 5 quite a lot, but it's kind of something that the idea was that it was a couple of Star Trek geeks who wanted to do the film, and then they wanted me to become to be the director because I didn't know anything about Star Trek, so I was able to do it in a way from an outsider point of view, so that it didn't go too deep into franchise love, but actually turned into a proper movie that would actually transfer to others than also Star Trek fans, I would say so.
Now, Timo, we know, Miles and I know the premise of Iron Sky, but for the benefit of our listeners that may not know much about this new project that you have in the works called Iron Sky, can you tell us just a little bit about it?
Yeah, Iron Sky is a science fiction comedy, which basically a dark, satiric science fiction comedy about the Nazis from the dark side of the moon. And it's a feature-length English language film which we've been working on ever since 2006, It's a $10 million production, which will be released in early next year, and it's kind of it's Finnish, German, Australian co-production. So yeah, that's the basics what I can tell you about it.
Okay. Now, now you mentioned that it's called a dark comedy, and I think your site mentioned this as being kind of a black comedy. Can you explain that term to our listeners that may not be familiar with what a black comedy is?
I mean, black comedy to me, I think many people view black comedy differently, but black comedy to me is comedy that kind of makes you laugh, but at the same time wonder, should I be laughing at this or not? I think that's good description.
So it makes you think. So you started shooting in 2008, Iron Sky. Is that when you guys? 2006. Okay, so it's been a 5-year project so far.
Yeah, I would say. I mean, we started working on the script and the funding of the film in 2006, and we started to shoot the film in. We had our shooting period starting last November and ending just I think exactly 1 month ago or something like that.
Now, can you tell us? I've read that Iron Sky was filmed in several different locations. Can you tell us what countries Iron Sky was filmed in?
Yeah, we started shooting Iron Sky in Frankfurt in Germany, and then we flew over to Gold Coast, Australia, and we finished the shoot over there in Gold Coast in the Warner Studios. So it was quite a worldwide shoot in that way. We shot it about 40 shooting days.
Very cool. So Iron Sky, right? So you're making a movie, a comedic movie about the Nazis on the, kind of almost has a little bit of the steampunk feel to it. But can you tell us a little bit, what was your inspiration? Why do a Nazi movie?
Why do a Nazi movie? Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's a topic that science fiction has been circling for ever since it was basically created, the whole genre. The whole idea of, we've seen so many totalitarian cultures and civilizations in Star Wars and Star Trek, and basically, whatever science fiction series or basically movie you can come up with. But when we started to really think about Nazis and the movie, kind of felt that this must have been done so many times. It feels so familiar. But we started to look into it. Actually, no, nobody has ever done it. Not in the film. It's been in pulp literature and pulp, all kind of pulp comic books and all that stuff, but never transferred into a film. And I think Finnish style of comedy, which is this kind of Scandinavian humor, works pretty well when you go into this kind of a serious topics. And I think it was just something that we felt that we had to do the moment we realized that there was a place for that.
Right. Well, I think, Miles, you and I were talking before we did the interview that, we were trying to think of, has there been other Nazi movies that have been science fiction based? The closest you kind of get to it are things like Indiana Jones, which are more period adventure and action movies, but you really don't get a lot of science fiction Nazi stuff out there. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, that's true. Star Trek has a couple of episodes of real McCoy kind of Nazis, like true Nazis in them. But real science fiction Nazis, there's Indiana Jones. Then there's obviously Hellboy. The first Hellboy has this kind of Nazi flavor to it, and I think that's basically it. It's
Sky Captain in the World of Tomorrow. Was that deal with Nazis?
Yeah. That's true, but they did. I don't think that they had Nazis. They had just somebody, a Sky Captain. No Nazis.
Right.
They've also, the original V TV series back in the early '80s. The visitors with an allegorical story about Nazism in a way.
It was definitely Nazis, and obviously the Imperium Star Wars is just a Nazi regime,
right?
And so on. I said it's been visited many times, but actually it's been really rarely made into real Nazis from space. That's something that hasn't been done. It's like totalitarian space. Fascists from Mars is one movie, but there isn't Nazis.
Right. So we kind of have an idea of the premise. Can you tell us a little bit more about the story? Is obviously in 1945 when the Nazi regime falls, a bunch of them take flight to the dark side of the moon, and they have this secret base up there. Can you tell us a little bit more about the story?
Yeah, I mean, it's a basic story. In 1945, Nazis went to moon. 2018, they are coming back. But it begins when the Americans decide to go back to moon, and they are there to look for helium-3, which is a real existing ingredient which you can get from the moon. It's supposed to be really a solution to energy problems and Earth. So anyway, the Americans, they land to moon, but they just happen to land a little bit too close to the secret Nazi moon base. So obviously, the Americans are being attacked, and one of them is being taken as a prisoner, as a hostage, as a prisoner taken into their base. And that's when the story starts to roll, when he meets one of the persons in the Nazi moon base, and it's basically their story altogether, how they eventually end up on Earth and they end up back to the moon and this big space battle and all that stuff. But that's the beginning of the whole thing.
Oh, very good, awesome. And I know we appreciated the trailers that we've seen for it, and we'll be embedding them in our show notes and allowing our listeners to kind of catch that as well. So, Miles, go ahead.
Yeah, I recently read Iron Sky is actually hiring. For the benefit of our listeners, can you give us a job description of and who they should contact, how to contact them?
Yeah, right now we're actually looking for skilled CGI artists. I mean, we have a good bunch of people in Finland already working. They actually come from all over the world, and we have a good bunch of people working on this. And we're right now looking for more people who have experience with Maya or Lightwave or composing or whatever there is. And people who would be interested in joining a project like this, who are really super skilled, would be willing to come over to Finland and spend half a year in Finland and in a completely different, strange country. And the best way to do that is just write to jobs@ironsky.net and introduce yourself and CV and whatever you get. That's the best way to come in. And that's the kind of people we're looking for very much right now.
Well, it's very much of it seems to be very much of a fan-driven project as well. There's a lot. I mean, your Facebook fan page up over close to 50,000 people that are following you guys, and you seem to have a pretty good base for a movie that's just, it's not finished yet, but you have a lot of people that are kind of anticipating it. What has been the build-up, and what have you heard about people have been saying? Oh, is it coming to this country? Bring it over here. Da 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 da. What has been said about that?
Yeah, I mean, the whole idea, the whole aspect of collaborating with the audience has been something we already did with Star Trek, and it was a really important part of making the film in the first place, because when we were working on Star Trek, we didn't have any idea how to make films or how to, we didn't have any money, or we didn't have basically any experience in filmmaking. So we asked to our internet community, said, would you like to help us? And they helped us. So we wanted to take this ideology along with Iron Sky also. We asked people to help us make the Iron Sky. So we created this kind of a collaborative community, which has started to spread all over the internet in the different parts of the world. And we always try to be very communicative and open with our fans and the people who are interested on the film, because the truth is we don't have the money the studios have to promote their films. We don't have that possibility. We're a small film coming from Finland. We don't have the money to really go to all the markets and talk about us, but we still are kind of hoping to find the same kind of audience from all over the world, and the best way to do that is really to communicate through the internet.
Yeah. Well, and I tell you what, the trailers certainly look sharp. We're not looking at a production that looks second rate by any means. I mean, you're looking at something that's high quality. I think people understand that just because the budget may not be, $100 million thrown at this film, it still looks pretty sharp.
Thanks a lot. We've been working on quite a lot, and we have a good CG team working on that.
Yeah.
It'll be a fun film.
Yeah. So when we obviously are interested, you said are we looking at early 2012? You're planning to release this film?
Yeah, it's early 2012. the idea is that we finish the film by the end of this year, but we don't exactly know when and where it's going to be released. So much to do with how we proceed with the pre-sales of the distribution sales of the film during this year. So by the end of the year, we're much more wise on when it's going to be released and where. But we're aiming for theatrical release in as many countries as possible, also hopefully in the States.
Very, very cool. And very cool. I mean, we would love to see that in theaters. I think it'd be a very cool movie to see in theaters as well.
Oh, yeah.
Miles, you want to take the last question here?
Sure. We talked about your Facebook fan page, but how can our listeners and anybody else find out about you and what you're doing and keep informed about Iron Sky?
Can you repeat the question? Sorry.
Okay. So you already mentioned your Facebook fan page, but along with that, how can our listeners find out more about you, what you're doing, and keep informed about Iron Sky?
I think the easiest way is to go to our website, which is obviously ironsky.net, which is net, ironsky.net, or follow us on Twitter, which we are very active on, at Energia and at Leon Blanc are the two addresses which we tend to be pretty active on there. And obviously the Facebook page is also a good way to be informed about Iron Sky. But ironsky.net kind of tries to gather all those pieces together into one single place where to go into Iron Sky's world.
Yeah, and we'll embed all that information as well as in our show notes so our listeners can find out more as well. Thank you so much, Timo, for coming on and just chatting with us about Iron Sky and about your passion for it. I know that we will continue to report to our listeners news as we get it come across as far as what's going on in the world of Iron Sky, and obviously when you release it, we'll be sharing that with our listeners.
That sounds really good. Thanks a lot. It's really nice to be here.
Welcome